yourself than to pretend to be something you're not. Because doing the latter is so emotionally taxing. You'll never be someone that is fully committed. Being yourself pays dividends, end quote. Now back to the article from Ms. Bani. 2, second regret. I wish I didn't work so hard. She continues, this came from every male patient that I nursed. They missed their children's youth and their partner's companionship. Women also spoke of this regret. But as most were from an older generation, many of the female patients had not been breadwinners. All of the men I nursed deeply regretted spending so much time of their lives on the treadmill of a work existence. By simplifying your lifestyle and making conscious choices along the way, she continues, it is possible to not need the income that you think you do. And by creating more space in your life, you become happier and more open to new opportunities, ones more suited to your new lifestyle. 3, third regret. I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. She says, many people suppress their feelings in order to keep peace with others. As a result, they settled for a mediocre existence and never became who they were truly capable of becoming. Many even developed illnesses related to the bitterness and resentment that they carried as a result. We cannot control the reactions of others, she goes on. However, although people may initially react when you change the way you are by speaking honestly, in the end it raises the relationship to a whole new and healthier level. Either that or it releases the unhealthy relationship from your life. Either way you win. Now that doesn't quite go far enough, because there's the words of the ancient rabbi that supplement this and should in fact inform this. And that's Ephesians chapter 4, verse 15. When you speak the truth, you do it in love. And by that I don't mean tough love as it's often conceived. I mean true compassion and consideration. Too often we end up speaking the truth and forgetting the in love. We need to do both. And we need to be honest in our relationships. Now, to this, the next web adds, expressing your feelings to loved ones and blogging or tweeting your thoughts are 2 different things. Very well said. That's why I decided to share this with you as well. It goes on as they add their advice. By the way, this is the site on which the article is found. People often use Twitter as a soapbox to express their anger or resentment over things they cannot control. We'd like to take this time to remind you that as much as we love living in the virtual world, sometimes a hug, a long chat over a glass of wine, or a cup of coffee if you would have it, or a phone call to a loved one far away is infinitely more valuable than any social media. To which I will add simply the phrase, which often adds distance, not necessarily connection. 4, I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. And the nurse continues, often they would not truly realize the full benefits of old friends until their dying weeks. And it was not then always possible to track those friends down. Many had become so caught up in their own lives that they had let golden friendships slip by over the years. There were many deep regrets about not giving friendships the time and effort that they deserved. Everyone misses their friends when they are dying. And she goes on to say, it is common for anyone in a busy lifestyle to let friendships slip. But when you are faced with your approaching death, the physical details of life tend to fall away. People do want to get their financial affairs in order, if possible. But it is not money or status that holds the true importance for them. They want to get things in order more for the benefit of those they love. Usually, though, they are too ill and weary to ever manage this task. In the end, it still comes down to love and relationships. That is all that remains in the final weeks. Love and relationships. And then number 5. I wish I had let myself be happier. She says this is a surprisingly common regret. Many did not realize until the end that happiness is truly a choice. They had stayed stuck in old patterns and habits. The so-called comfort zone of familiarity overflowed into their emotions as well as their physical lives. Fear of change, she says, had them pretending to others and to themselves that they were content. When deep within, they longed to laugh properly and have silliness in their lives again. Let me stop there for a second. That is radically missing in our day and age. To laugh properly. No, to laugh raucously and to have silliness in your life. Anyhow, she goes on to say, when you are on your deathbed, what others think of you is a long way from your mind. How wonderful to be able to let go and smile again, long before you are dying. And then the next web adds their own bit of advice, appropriately. If you are reading this, or in your case, if you are listening to this, chances are that you have a long way to go before you die. So, please allow yourself to be happy. Smile in the sunshine, laugh in the rain, kick the ball around with your son, throw it to your daughter. Have a glass of wine with your wife in the afternoon. They say travel to Argentina. No. You know what I'm going to say. Travel to Israel. Buy yourself a Kindle for the love of reading. Whatever it is, be good to yourself. A great list and some strikingly insightful words. Now, what I found interesting in the parsha we're dealing with, which is last week's, is that the concluding verses of that portion for the week describe the commandment to wear tzitzit, fringes, on the corners of our garments. Now, these verses, as you're well aware, are the origin for the mitzvah of wearing the talit, or the prayer shawl. God instructed that the wearing of a tzitzit was meant to be a reminder for us throughout all of our generations that we might look on them and remember our relationship with Him and our covenant obligation to God. Now, this raises the question. It's two questions, really. First question is why? And the second question, I think even more significantly, is why here in the text? And the answer comes in verse 39 of chapter 15. So that you will not follow after your own heart and eyes, after which you went astray. To remind us to go the right way, and to remind us not to do what the spies had done in following their eyes and their own hearts, and so lost a precious opportunity. So the tzitzit are meant to serve as safeguards, my friends, against our lack of faith and vision, to be constant reminders not only of God's instructions and guidelines for us, but also of His loving faithfulness to each one of us. Now, what do? All too often we focus on the negatives, the obstacles that we are faced with each day. And we forget the many times we have seen God act on our behalf, the many miracles God has done for us, and the many opportunities He places before us. Just like our ancestors, we missed the boat. I guess that would have been kind of hard to do in the wilderness, wouldn't it be? That's another mixed metaphor. We'll get along with it. Just like our ancestors, we missed the boat, and we often lack faith. We know God's promises for our lives, but far too often we cower when faced with fierce opponents and well-fortified lands. It is just so much easier to hide behind our own insecurities and to whine about the problems. Why the tzitzit? Because we constantly need reminders of our opportunities, reminders of our faith, reminders of our constant devotion to God and His to us, so that we, like our ancestors, and yes, the other generation got it, like Caleb and Joshua, we too will have the courage to walk in and take back the promised land and to make the most the opportunities God has given to us. A young and successful executive was driving through a neighborhood. He was going a bit too fast in his new Jaguar, or I guess as now you pronounce it, Jaguar. Some of you have heard the commercial, that's okay. He was watching for kids darting out from between parked cars, and he slowed down when he thought he saw something. As his car continued down the street, no children appeared. And then he was surprised as suddenly a brick smashed into his side door. He slammed on the brakes and he backed up to the spot where the brick had been thrown. The angry driver jumped out of his car, grabbed the nearest kid, pushed him up against the parked car and shouted, "What was that all about? Who are you? Just what are you doing? That's a new car, and that brick you threw is going to cost me a lot of money. Why did you do it?" The young boy was apologetic. "Please, mister, please. I'm sorry, but I didn't know what else to do. I threw the brick because no one else would stop." And then, with tears dripping down his face, the boy pointed to a spot just around the parked car. "It's my brother," he said. "He rolled off the curb and fell out of his wheelchair, and I can't lift him up." Now sobbing, the boy asked the stunned executive, "Would you please help me get him back into the wheelchair? He's hurt, and he's too heavy for me." Moved beyond words, the driver tried to swallow the lump in his throat. He lifted the handicapped boy back into the wheelchair, then took out a handkerchief and wiped the fresh scrapes and cuts on the young boy's face. A quick look told him that everything was going to be okay. "Thank you, and may God bless you," the grateful child said to the stranger. Still too shook up for words, the man simply watched the boy push his wheelchair-bound brother down the sidewalk toward their home. It was a long, slow walk back to the Jaguar. The damage was very noticeable. But the driver never bothered to repair the dented door. He kept the dent there to remind him of this message. Don't go through life so fast that someone has to throw a brick at you to get your attention. God whispers in our minds, He speaks to our hearts. Sometimes we don't take the time to listen, and He has to throw a brick at us. Friends, it's your choice to listen or not. Take the next minute or so in quiet response to make that decision and that choice, the first of many, for a life without regret.